The dawn broke soft and uncertain over the El Paso horizon, painting the desert landscape in hues of muted gold and dusty rose. Sarah Martinez stood by the kitchen window of her modest adobe-style home, her fingers wrapped around a worn ceramic. A Mugia relic from her last covert mission in the Andes. The early morning light caught the subtle network of lines etched around her eyes, each one a testament to decades of silent service, of battles fought in shadowy corridors of international intelligence. Her home was a carefully curated space that revealed nothing and everything. Bookshelves lined with volumes in multiple languages stood alongside meticulously maintained communication equipment that looked more like art installations than operational tech. A collection of maps, some marked with cryptic notations, others seemingly untouched, covered one entire wall. To an untrained eye, it might appear like the workspace of an eccentric academic. To those who knew, it was the nerve center of a living legend. The morning routine was a ballet of precision. Sarah moved with the calculated grace of someone who had survived countless high-stakes scenarios. Her preparation for travel was no different from her preparation for a classified mission. Each item packed was a carefully considered tool, each movement deliberate and economical. Her go-bagged nondescript olive-green piece of luggage that had accompanied her through multiple continents lay open on the dining table. Inside, a carefully curated collection of items told a story of survival and strategic thinking. A compact satellite communication device modified beyond standard military specifications. Emergency medical kit with supplies that could stabilize a critically wounded operative in any terrain. Multilingual translation devices. Encrypted communication tablets. A set of passports, each telling a different story, each a potential lifeline. In an unpredictable world. The photograph on her sideboard caught the morning light, a younger Sarah standing alongside a diverse group of operatives. Their faces etched with the kind of camaraderie that comes from surviving impossible missions. Most of those faces were now ghosts, memories of a career that demanded ultimate sacrifice. Some had fallen in remote conflict zones, others had disappeared into the complex networks of international intelligence. Sarah was one of the few who had survived, who had learned to navigate the treacherous waters of global security with a combination of razor-sharp intellect and intuitive understanding. Her phone buzzed an encrypted message that most communication systems would interpret as random noise. But to Sarah, it was a carefully constructed communication from her network. Intelligence never slept, and neither did the global threats that she had dedicated her life to neutralizing. A potential situation was developing in Southeast Asia, a complex web of geopolitical tensions that could potentially destabilize an entire region. Memories flooded her consciousness. Her journey hadn't been a straight path, but a series of unexpected turns. The daughter of Mexican immigrants, she had grown up understanding the complexity of borders, not just geographical, but the invisible lines that separated safety from danger, truth from manipulation. Her parents had taught her that survival was an art form, that intelligence was the most powerful weapon, and that one's origin was never a limitation, but a source of strength. Her academic journey had been as unconventional as her later career. A doctorate in international relations from Georgetown, followed by specialized training that existed in the gray areas between academic research and covert operations. She spoke 7 languages with the fluency of a native, each language a key to unlock complex cultural and geopolitical landscapes. The first time she had been recruited wasn't traumatic. No Hollywood-style approach, no sudden revelation. It was a quiet conversation in a university research lab, where her ability to connect seemingly unrelated global events caught the attention of a senior intelligence officer. They saw in her something rare, not just intelligence, but a profound understanding of human motivation, of the intricate dance of global power. Her initial missions had been analytical deciphering complex communication networks, understanding the psychological profiles of potential threats. But Sarah was never content being just an analyst. She wanted to be in the field, to understand threats, not just through data, but through direct human interaction. Her first active mission in the Middle East had been a turning point, a complex operation that required her to integrate into a network of local informants, to build trust in environments where trust was more valuable than gold. Years of service had taught her that the most dangerous threats were never the ones that made headlines. They were the quiet manipulations, the subtle shifts in global power dynamics that could trigger cascading consequences. She had prevented more conflicts through strategic communication and intelligent intervention than through direct combat. Now, as she prepared for this seemingly routine flight, Sarah knew nothing was ever truly routine. Her entire career had been a testament to the unexpected, to being prepared for anything, anywhere, at any time. The morning light continued to shift, casting long shadows across her carefully organized space. Outside, the desert wind whispered stories of countless missions, of borders crossed, of lives saved in silence. Sarah Martinez adjusted her jacket, checked her go-bag one final time, and stepped out into the world, just another passenger carrying within her the weight of global security. Her taxi arrived precisely on time, the driver unaware that he was transporting one of the most significant intelligence operatives of her generation. To him, she was just another passenger. But in the complex world of global intelligence, Sarah Martinez was anything but ordinary. The F-22 Raptor sliced through the stratosphere like a silver blade, its advanced sensors painting an intricate digital landscape of the sky. Inside the cockpit, Captain Mike Rodriguez and Lieutenant Elena Chun represented the pinnacle of modern aerial warfare, young, brilliant, and part of an elite cadre of pilots who were more than just aviators. They were guardians of the invisible frontiers that separated national security from global chaos. Captain Rodriguez's fingers hovered over the communication panel, his olive skin slightly flushed with an emotion that transcended professional protocol. The passenger manifest wasn't just a routine document. It was a portal to a legend that had shaped modern intelligence operations for decades. Shadow Weaver, he whispered, the name carrying weight that seemed to make the very air inside the cockpit grow heavy. Lieutenant Chun's eyes widened, her hands momentarily frozen on the aircraft's advanced control systems. She had heard the stories since her earliest days in military academy tales that seemed more like mythology than actual intelligence history. Sarah Martinez wasn't just an operative. She was a living embodiment of what true strategic intelligence could achieve. The story of Shadow Weaver was whispered in the most exclusive military circles, a narrative that bridged generations of intelligence operatives. It began in the complex geopolitical landscape of the early 2000s, during a period when traditional warfare was giving way to a more nuanced form of global conflict. Martinez had emerged as a prodigy, someone who could read global tensions like most people read newspapers. Her first major operation had been so classified that it remained nothing more than a ghost story among intelligence circles. A potential nuclear confrontation in a remote region of Central Asia, a situation that could have potentially triggered a global catastrophe. While diplomatic channels fumbled and military strategists prepared for potential conflict, Martinez had woven an intricate network of local informants, diplomatic back channels, and strategic misinformation that had ultimately prevented the conflict. Captain Rodriguez remembered the first time he had heard about her during his advanced tactical training. A senior instructor, a grizzled veteran with decades of covert operations experience, had shared a story that seemed almost impossible to believe. Martinez had single-handedly disrupted a complex terrorist network by understanding the psychological motivations of its leaders, by speaking their languages, by comprehending the cultural nuances that traditional intelligence approaches had. Missed. The cockpit of the F-22 was a marvel of modern technology, a symphony of advanced sensors, communication systems, and predictive algorithms. But even with all this technology, the human element remained paramount. And Sarah Martinez represented the pinnacle of human intelligence, someone who could see patterns where others saw only chaos. Lieutenant Chun pulled up the limited information available about today's flight. A routine cross-country journey that would take the passenger aircraft through multiple strategic air corridors. But nothing was ever truly routine when Shadow Weaver was involved. Their communication systems were a labyrinth of encrypted channels, each with its own layer of security that would make civilian communication look like child's play. Today, those channels were buzzing with a subtle energy, a network of operatives, analysts, and field agents who seemed to be anticipating something. "She's never just a passenger," Rodriguez muttered, more to himself than to his co-pilot. The stories about Martinez were legendary. There was the mission in the Horn of Africa, where she had negotiated a complex tribal conflict that had defied diplomatic resolution for decades. Another operation in South America, where she had dismantled an international drug network by understanding the intricate economic ecosystems that sustained it. The military was an ecosystem of stories, of legends, passed down through generations. And Sarah Martinez was more than a legend. She was a living testament to the power of intelligent, strategic intervention. Her approach wasn't about brute force or overwhelming firepower. It was about understanding human motivation, cultural dynamics, the invisible threads that connected global events. Lieutenant Chun's fingers danced across her communication panel, pulling up archived briefings, mission reports that had been so heavily redacted they were more black ink than actual text. Each document told a fragment of a larger story, a story of someone who had redefined what it meant to protect a nation. Their F-22, a marvel of engineering that represented the cutting edge of aerial technology, seemed almost humble in comparison to the human intelligence represented by a single passenger in a commercial aircraft. Modern warfare wasn't just about advanced technology, it was about understanding, about seeing the complex web of human interactions that could trigger or prevent global conflicts. The air traffic control communication crackled with its routine updates, but for Rodriguez and Chun, the routine had been replaced by anticipation. They knew that today was different. That somewhere below them, in seat 14F, was an operative who had shaped global security in ways that would never make headlines, who had prevented conflicts before they could even begin. As the Raptor continued its strategic patrol, the pilots exchanged a look that spoke volumes. It was a look of respect, of understanding that true power wasn't about the technology they commanded, but about the human intelligence that could navigate the most complex global landscapes. Sarah Martinez was more than a passenger. She was a living strategy, a walking intelligence network, a guardian who moved through the world with a precision that made advanced military technology seem almost primitive in comparison. The sky stretched endlessly around them, a canvas of possibility, of potential threats and potential peace. And somewhere within that canvas, a single passenger continued her journey, carrying with her decades of strategic wisdom that could reshape global dynamics. With a single intervention, just another passenger. Or so it would seem to the untrained eye. The borderlands of El Paso tell stories that most of the world never hears, stories of resilience, of survival, of dreams forged in the crucible of challenging circumstances. This was the landscape that shaped Maria Elena Rodriguez and Rafael Martinez, the parents who would raise a daughter destined to redefine the boundaries of intelligence and national service. Rafael had crossed the border with nothing more than a worn backpack and an unbreakable spirit. A former mathematics teacher from Chihuahua, he brought with him a profound belief in the power of education, in the transformative potential of knowledge. Maria Elena, born to a family of seamstresses in Ciudad Juarez, possessed an intuitive understanding of human nature that would later become her daughter's most powerful asset. Their small rental home was a sanctuary of learning. Bookshelves lined every available wall, a testament to Raphael's belief that knowledge was the most powerful form of currency. Young Sarah-born Sarai Rodriguez Martinez absorbed this environment like oxygen. By the age of 6, she was reading college-level texts, her multilingual capabilities emerging naturally in a household where Spanish, English, and occasional fragments of indigenous languages created a linguistic tapestry. The public school system in El Paso could barely contain her intellectual curiosity. Teachers would often find her reading advanced texts while other children worked on basic assignments. It wasn't arrogance that drove her, but an insatiable hunger to understand the world, its complexities, its interconnections, its hidden narratives. Her first true awakening came during a high school model United Nations conference. While other students played at diplomacy, Sarah saw it as a complex chess game of human motivation. Her presentation on global conflict resolution wasn't just a school project, it was a nuanced analysis that caught the attention of a visiting State Department official who recognized something extraordinary in the young woman. College wasn't just an academic journey for Sarah, it was a strategic mission. Georgetown University became her training ground, a place where she could transform her intellectual prowess into a tool for national service. Her doctoral research wasn't a typical academic pursuit. It was a deep dive into the psychological mechanisms of international conflict, exploring how cultural understanding could prevent wars before they began. The recruitment wasn't dramatic. No Hollywood-style approach, no sudden revelation. It was a quiet conversation in a research laboratory, where her ability to connect seemingly unrelated global events caught the attention of a senior intelligence officer. They saw in her something rare, not just intelligence, but a profound understanding of human motivation, of the intricate dance of global power. Her initial missions defied traditional intelligence approaches. In the complex regions of the Middle East, she wasn't just an operative, she was a cultural translator. Languages were her weapons, cultural understanding her most advanced technology. She could navigate tribal dynamics in Afghanistan with the same ease that she could decode complex diplomatic communications in Geneva. One mission in particular would define her early career. A potential conflict in a resource-rich region of Central Asia threatened to destabilize an entire geopolitical landscape. While traditional intelligence agencies prepared military contingencies, Sarah developed a network of local informants that ultimately prevented the conflict through strategic communication and deep cultural understanding. Her methods were unconventional. She didn't rely on advanced technology or overwhelming force. Instead, she understood the human ecosystem of conflict, the economic pressures, the cultural tensions, the personal motivations that drove individuals and groups. She spoke 7 languages not just as a technical skill, but as a means of genuine connection. The intelligence community initially viewed her with skepticism. A young Latina woman challenging established protocols, suggesting that understanding was more powerful than confrontation. But results spoke louder than institutional resistance. Mission after mission, she demonstrated an ability to resolve complex global tensions through intelligent intervention. Her doctoral dissertation became a classified document, its insights too valuable to be shared publicly. It explored how cultural intelligence could prevent conflicts, how understanding human motivation was more powerful than traditional military strategy. The paper was studied in the most exclusive military and diplomatic training programs, a blueprint for a new approach to global security. Personal relationships were a luxury Sarah rarely allowed herself. Her commitment to her work was total. Her understanding that global security required personal sacrifice, romantic partnerships, family traditions, personal comforts, these were secondary to her mission of protecting not just a nation, but the delicate global ecosystem of human interactions. By her mid-30s, Sarah had become more than an operative. She was a strategic asset, someone who could read global tensions like most people read newspapers. Her network extended across continents, a web of informants, diplomatic contacts, and strategic allies who recognized her unique capabilities. The nickname Shadow Weaver emerged organically within intelligence circles. It spoke to her ability to create complex strategic interventions that seemed to emerge from nowhere, to weave solutions from threads that others couldn't even perceive. She didn't just prevent conflicts. She reconstructed the very landscape of potential confrontation. Her parents watched her journey with a mixture of pride and concern. They understood the weight of her mission, the dangerous beauty of a life dedicated to global protection. Raphael would often quote an old Mexican proverb, "Knowledge is the light that guides us through the darkest nights." Sarah was that light illuminating the complex shadows of global conflict. As she boarded this seemingly routine flight, Sarah carried with her decades of strategic wisdom. More than an operative, more than a legend, she was a living testament to the power of intelligent, compassionate intervention. A guardian who moved through the world with a precision that made traditional notions of national security seem almost primitive. Just another passenger. Or so it would seem to the untrained eye. The digital landscape of global security pulsed with an almost imperceptible tension. Invisible to most, but not to Sarah Martinez, a complex network of potential threats was taking shape, a geopolitical puzzle that threatened to unravel decades of careful diplomatic negotiations. Her encrypted communication device, a marvel of custom engineering that looked like an ordinary smartphone, began to vibrate with a series of coded messages. To the casual observer, it might have appeared as nothing more than a routine notification. But Sarah's trained eye recognized the specific frequency, the subtle encryption pattern that signaled something far more significant. The threat was emerging from the complex geopolitical landscape of Southeast Asia, a region where historical tensions, economic ambitions, and cultural complexities created a powder keg of potential conflict. Intelligence reports had been hinting at a coordinated series of cyber and physical interventions that could destabilize multiple national security frameworks. Sarah's mind began to work with the precision of a quantum computer, processing multiple layers of information simultaneously. Her years of experience had taught her that true threats were never linear, never simple. They were complex ecosystems of human motivation, technological capability, and geopolitical ambition. The first layer of the threat was a sophisticated cyber operation targeting critical infrastructure across 3 Southeast Asian nations. Traditional security protocols would have focused on the technological aspects: firewalls, encryption, digital defense mechanisms. But Sarah understood that technology was merely a symptom. The real battle was always human. Her fingers moved with surgical precision across the communication device. A series of encrypted messages began to fan out across her global network. Trusted operatives, diplomatic contacts, local informants who had been cultivated over decades of careful relationship building. Each message was a carefully constructed piece of a larger strategic intervention. In Jakarta, a local contact in the telecommunications ministry would receive a coded warning that would prompt an internal security review. In Bangkok, a diplomatic backchannel would be activated to create a subtle diplomatic pressure that would disrupt the potential attack's momentum. In Manila, a complex network of financial tracking would be subtly manipulated to cut off potential funding sources. Most intelligence operations would rely on overwhelming technological force or direct military intervention. Sarah's approach was different. She understood that true security was about understanding the human motivations, the economic pressures, the cultural dynamics that drove potential conflict. The cyber threat was merely the surface. Deeper intelligence suggested a more complex operation, a coordinated attempt to destabilize regional economic frameworks, to create sufficient chaos that would allow certain geopolitical actors to reshape existing power structures. It was a game of global chess, with human lives as the potential casualties. Her satellite communication device, a custom-built piece of technology that looked deceptively simple, began to compile data from multiple sources. Intercepted communications, financial transaction patterns, subtle shifts in military positioning. To the untrained eye, these would appear as unrelated fragments. To Sarah, they were a complex narrative waiting to be understood. A message from a deep-cover operative in Singapore confirmed her initial assessment. The threat was real, coordinated, and moving with a precision that suggested state-level backing. Traditional intelligence agencies were still collecting data, still preparing their initial reports. Sarah was already 3 moves ahead, her strategic intervention already in motion. The commercial aircraft continued its journey, unaware that one of its passengers was simultaneously preventing a potential global crisis. Sarah's posture remained unchanged to the other passengers. She was just another traveler checking her phone. Her ability to operate with such calm under extreme pressure was itself a testament to her extraordinary capabilities. Each encrypted message was a strategic thread, carefully woven to create a protective network. She wasn't just preventing a potential conflict. She was reshaping the entire geopolitical landscape. Her approach wasn't about confrontation, but about understanding the complex human ecosystem that drove potential threats. The cyber infrastructure was just one layer. Financial networks would be subtly manipulated. Diplomatic back channels would be activated. Local intelligence networks would be strategically informed. Each intervention was designed not to create conflict, but to dissipate it, to redirect the potential energy of confrontation into more constructive channels. Her modified communication device, a piece of technology that represented the cutting edge of intelligence capabilities, continued to process and transmit information. Multiple layers of encryption, quantum-level security protocols, and a network of global contacts transformed a simple electronic device into a strategic command center. The other passengers remained blissfully unaware. A middle-aged woman checking her email, scrolling through what appeared to be routine messages. But each touch, each subtle movement, was part of a complex global intervention that would prevent potential conflicts before they could even begin to take shape. As the aircraft continued its journey across the vast American landscape, Sarah Martinez represented something far more significant than a single operative. She was a living, breathing embodiment of intelligent intervention, someone who could read global tensions like most people read newspapers, who could prevent conflicts through understanding rather than confrontation. The threat was real. The potential for significant global destabilization was imminent. And yet, to the untrained eye, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Just another passenger on just another flight. Or so it would seem. The name Shadow Weaver was more than just a call sign. It was a legend that echoed through the most exclusive corridors of global intelligence. A whispered story that transcended generations of operatives, diplomats, and strategic thinkers. In the hallowed halls of military academies and intelligence training centers, Sarah Martinez's missions were studied not as historical accounts, but as masterclasses in strategic intervention. Her approach to global security was revolutionary. Paradigm that challenged everything traditional intelligence operations had believed about conflict prevention. The origins of her legendary status could be traced back to a series of operations that seemed almost impossible in their complexity and precision. In the treacherous tribal regions of Afghanistan, where traditional military approaches had failed. For decades, Sarah had achieved what seemed unimaginable. She didn't approach the mission with weapons or overwhelming force, but with an unprecedented understanding of cultural dynamics, linguistic nuance, and human motivation. Her first major breakthrough came during a mission that would remain classified. For years, a potential conflict between two rival tribal groups threatened to destabilize an entire region, creating a power vacuum that could have drawn in multiple international actors. Where military strategists saw an impossible situation, Sarah saw a complex human ecosystem waiting to be understood. She spent months embedding herself within the local communities, learning dialects that most linguists would have considered impossible to master. Her approach wasn't about gathering intelligence in the traditional sense. It was about creating understanding, about finding the human connections that could prevent conflict. The young intelligence officers who studied her case files spoke of her with a reverence that bordered on mythology. In training simulations, her methods were considered the gold standard in approach that prioritized human intelligence over technological intervention, cultural understanding over military might. Her reputation extended far beyond a single mission or a specific geographic region. Sarah Martinez represented a new paradigm of global security, one that understood that true protection wasn't about confrontation, but about understanding the complex human motivations that drove potential conflicts. Military training centers began to incorporate her methodologies into their core curriculum. Her approach challenged traditional notions of intelligence gathering. It wasn't about collecting data, but about understanding the human ecosystem that created potential threats. Language wasn't just a communication tool, it was a strategic asset, a way of understanding the deepest motivations of potential adversaries. The nickname Shadow Weaver emerged organically within intelligence circles. It spoke to her ability to create complex strategic interventions that seemed to emerge from nowhere, to weave solutions from threads that others couldn't even perceive. She didn't just prevent conflicts. She reconstructed the very landscape of potential confrontation. Her most significant operations remained classified, known only to a select few at the highest levels of global intelligence. There were whispers of missions that had prevented nuclear confrontations, of diplomatic interventions that had reshaped global power dynamics without a single shot being fired. Each mission was a testament to the power of intelligent, strategic thinking. Young operatives studied her methods with a combination of academic rigor and almost spiritual reverence. Her doctoral dissertation, largely classified, became required reading in the most exclusive intelligence training programs. It wasn't just an academic paper, it was a blueprint for a new approach to global security. The traditional metrics of intelligence success, number of targets eliminated, intelligence gathered, meant nothing to Sarah. Her success was measured in conflicts prevented, in human lives saved through understanding rather than confrontation. She saw global security as a complex human ecosystem, not a battlefield to be conquered. Her network of contacts was legendary. Diplomats, local informants, academic researchers, economic analysts, a web of connections that spanned continents. Each relationship was carefully cultivated, each contact a potential thread in preventing a larger conflict. She understood that true intelligence wasn't about gathering information, but about creating understanding. The most prestigious intelligence agencies around the world had attempted to recruit her fully, to make her a permanent fixture within their organizational structures. But Sarah understood that her power came from her independence, from her ability to move between systems, to see connections that institutional frameworks often missed. Military historians would later describe her as a transitional figure, someone who bridged the old paradigms of intelligence gathering with a new, more nuanced approach to global security. She represented a generation of operatives who understood that the most powerful interventions were often the ones that never made headlines, the conflicts prevented before they could even begin to take shape. Her reputation wasn't built on dramatic confrontations or Hollywood-style heroics. It was built on a profound understanding of human motivation, on the ability to see the complex connections that drove global tensions. Each mission was a delicate intervention, a strategic weaving of diplomatic, economic, and cultural threads. Young intelligence officers would gather in quiet corners of training facilities, sharing stories about her legendary missions. These weren't just professional accounts, they were modern myths, stories of an operative who had redefined what it meant to protect a nation, to understand global security. As the aircraft continued its journey, Sarah Martinez represented something far more significant than a single operative. She was a living testament to the power of intelligent intervention, to the idea that true security came from understanding, not confrontation. Just another passenger. Or so it would seem to the untrained eye. The legend of the Shadow Weaver continued to grow, a whispered story of strategic brilliance that would inspire generations of intelligence operatives to come. The commercial aircraft hummed with the mundane energy of routine travel. Passengers scrolled through digital devices, engaged in muted conversations, lost in their own worlds. But within Seat 14F, a complex global intervention was unfolding, with a precision that would reshape international security landscapes. Sarah Martinez's modified communication device, a piece of technology that looked deceptively like a standard smartphone, was now a sophisticated command center. Its quantum-encrypted communication systems created a network that transcended traditional intelligence infrastructure. Each touch, each subtle movement, was a carefully choreographed strategic intervention. The first layer of the threat was a multi-pronged cyber operation targeting critical infrastructure across Southeast Asian nations. Most intelligence agencies would still be compiling initial reports, analyzing data, preparing traditional response protocols. Sarah was already 3 strategic moves ahead, her intervention creating a protective network that would dissipate the potential conflict before it could fully materialize. Her fingers moved with surgical precision, each encrypted message a carefully constructed thread in a larger strategic tapestry. In Jakarta, a local contact within the telecommunications ministry would receive a coded warning that would trigger an immediate internal security review. The message was designed not just to alert, but to create a specific chain of protective actions. In Bangkok, a diplomatic back channel would be activated, a delicate communication that would create subtle pressure, redirecting potential confrontational energies. The message was crafted with linguistic precision, understanding the cultural nuances that could transform a potential threat into a diplomatic opportunity. Manila would see a complex manipulation of financial tracking systems, cutting off potential funding sources for the coordinated attack. It wasn't about blocking resources, but about creating a sophisticated economic redirect that would make the planned operation financially unviable. Most operatives would rely on direct confrontation or overwhelming technological force. Sarah's approach was fundamentally different. She saw global security as a complex human ecosystem, where understanding was more powerful than confrontation. Each intervention was a delicate surgical strike of intelligence, designed to prevent conflict by understanding its deepest motivations. Her satellite communication system began compiling data from multiple sources, intercepted communications, financial transaction patterns, subtle shifts in military positioning. To an untrained eye, these would appear as unrelated fragments. To Sarah, they were a complex narrative waiting to be understood and strategically neutralized. A deep cover operative in Singapore provided critical confirmation. The threat was real, coordinated, and moving with a precision that suggested state-level backing. Traditional intelligence agencies were still collecting initial data. Sarah was already reconstructing the entire operational landscape. The other passengers remained blissfully unaware. A middle-aged woman checking her email, seemingly absorbed in routine digital communication. But each touch, each subtle movement, was part of a complex global intervention that would prevent potential conflicts before they could even begin to take shape. Her network of global contacts began to activate a web of diplomats, local informants, economic analysts, and strategic advisors who had been carefully cultivated over decades. Each contact was a potential thread in preventing a larger conflict. Each relationship a strategic asset more valuable than any technological weapon. The cyber infrastructure was just one layer of the potential threat. Sarah's intervention would create a multidimensional protective network. Diplomatic channels would be subtly redirected. Economic pressures would be strategically applied. Cultural understanding would be leveraged to create alternative conflict resolution pathways. Her modified communication device processed information with quantum-level encryption. Multiple layers of security protocols transformed a simple electronic device into a global strategic command center. Each transmission was a carefully constructed piece of a larger protective mechanism. The aircraft continued its journey across the vast American landscape, unaware that one of its passengers was simultaneously preventing a potential global crisis. Sarah's posture remained unchanged, calm, focused, appearing to be just another traveler checking routine messages. Intelligence wasn't about gathering information, she knew. It was about creating understanding, about seeing the complex human motivations that drove potential conflicts, about finding the delicate threads that could transform potential confrontation into diplomatic opportunity. Her intervention would prevent conflicts that most would never know had been close to erupting. No dramatic headlines, no military confrontations. Just a complex, almost invisible strategic weaving that would redirect potential global tensions. A message from a contact in Kuala Lumpur provided additional context. The potential threat was more complex than initial assessments had suggested. Coordinated operation that went beyond traditional geopolitical boundaries. Economic destabilization, cyber infrastructure manipulation, potential diplomatic pressure points. A multidimensional challenge that required an equally sophisticated response. Sarah's mind worked with the precision of a quantum computer, processing multiple layers of information simultaneously. Each piece of data was a potential thread in a larger strategic narrative. Her decades of experience had taught her that true intelligence was about understanding the human ecosystem that created potential threats. The other passengers continued their journey, unaware of the complex global intervention happening mere feet away from them. A woman checking her email, scrolling through what appeared to be routine messages. But each touch, each subtle movement, was part of a complex strategic operation. As the aircraft continued its journey, Sarah Martinez represented something far more significant than a single operative. She was a living, breathing embodiment of intelligent intervention, someone who could read global tensions like most people read newspapers, who could prevent conflicts through understanding rather than confrontation. The threat was real. The potential for significant global destabilization was imminent. And yet, to the untrained eye, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Just another passenger on just another flight. Or so it would seem. The moment of transition was so subtle that it would escape the notice of even the most observant traveler. As the aircraft began its descent into the designated arrival airport, Sarah Martinez embodied the perfect balance between an ordinary passenger and an extraordinary national asset. The airport itself was a carefully choreographed ecosystem of security and movement. What appeared to be routine security personnel, baggage handlers, and airline staff were, in fact, a meticulously arranged network of protection and extraction. Each individual was a carefully vetted part of a complex operational infrastructure designed to ensure Sarah's safe transition from her commercial journey to her next strategic assignment. Her go-bag, a seemingly ordinary piece of luggage, was anything but typical. Custom engineered with layers of advanced security protocols, it was a mobile command center disguised as a standard carry-on. Materials developed in classified laboratories made it virtually undetectable to standard scanning technologies. Its contents represented a lifetime of strategic capability. Encrypted communication devices, specialized survival equipment, and documents that could reshape global security landscapes. The other passengers remained oblivious. A middle-aged woman moving with the practiced ease of a frequent traveler, blending seamlessly into the background of routine airport movement. But every step, every subtle gesture was calculated with the precision of a carefully orchestrated military operation. Her extraction team was a marvel of strategic planning. What appeared to be ordinary airport personnel were, in reality, a sophisticated network of operatives from multiple intelligence agencies. A baggage handler with weathered hands and a routine demeanor was a former Special Forces operative with multiple classified commendations. The woman checking boarding passes had a background in advanced cryptography and had personally been involved in some of the most sensitive intelligence operations of the past decade. The airport itself was more than a transportation hub. It was a complex strategic environment that had been prepared hours in advance of Sarah's arrival. Communication channels had been subtly secured, potential observation points mapped, alternative extraction routes prepared. Each potential variable had been analyzed and accounted for with a level of precision that bordered on mathematical perfection. A nondescript black SUV waited outside its exterior, suggesting nothing more than a standard airport transportation service. But its internal systems represented the cutting edge of mobile security infrastructure, armored beyond standard specifications, equipped with communication systems that could operate independently of standard cellular networks. It was a mobile command center disguised as a routine vehicle. The driver, Michael Rodriguez, no relation to the F-22 pilot, who had earlier monitored her flight, was a veteran of multiple classified operations. His appearance was deliberately unremarkable, mid-40s, slightly graying hair, wearing the uniform of a standard airport transportation service. But his background told a different story: years of special operations experience, multiple classified commendations, and a level of tactical training that made him far more than a simple driver. Sarah's transition from passenger to national asset was a ballet of strategic movement. Each step was calculated, each interaction carefully choreographed. To the casual observer, she was simply another traveler moving through a busy airport. But her very movement was a complex strategic intervention. The global threat she had neutralized during the flight was just one layer of her ongoing mission. Intelligence didn't stop at preventing a single operation. It was about understanding the complex ecosystem of global tensions, about seeing the interconnected nature of potential conflicts. Her modified communication device continued to process information, creating a real-time analysis of the intervention she had just completed. Multiple layers of encryption ensured that the data would be comprehensible only to a select few at the highest levels of global intelligence infrastructure. The SUV moved through the airport traffic with a deliberate, unremarkable pace. No sudden movements, no indications of anything out of the ordinary. Just another vehicle in the complex ecosystem of airport transportation. But its internal systems were anything but ordinary communication, networks that could operate independently of standard infrastructure, security protocols that would make most military vehicles seem primitive by comparison. Sarah's debriefing would be anything but a standard intelligence report. Her intervention in the potential Southeast Asian crisis would be analyzed at the highest levels of multiple international intelligence agencies. Each message she had sent, each strategic connection she had created, would be studied as a masterclass in intelligent intervention. The transition from commercial passenger to national asset was complete. But to the world around her, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Just another traveler being picked up at another airport. Or so it would seem. Michael Rodriguez caught her eye in the rearview mirror. A subtle nod of acknowledgement. No words were necessary. Their entire communication was a complex language of strategic understanding, of shared mission, of a commitment that went far beyond traditional notions of national service. As the SUV merged into the afternoon traffic, Sarah Martinez represented something far more significant than a single operative. She was a living testament to the power of intelligent intervention, to the idea that true security came from understanding, from seeing the complex connections that most would miss. Just another passenger being picked up at just another airport. Or so it would seem. The world of global security exists in layers invisible to most a complex ecosystem of human intelligence, strategic intervention, and profound understanding that operates far beyond the headlines, far beneath the surface of what most people comprehend as national protection. Sarah Martinez represented the pinnacle of this invisible guardianship. Her life was not about dramatic confrontations or Hollywood-style heroics, but about the intricate art of preventing conflicts before they could even begin to take shape. She was a living testament to the idea that true security was about understanding, human motivation, cultural dynamics, the delicate threads that connected global ecosystems. Her office, when she occasionally used one, was a carefully curated space that revealed nothing and everything. Maps covered one wall, not the typical geopolitical representations found in government buildings, but intricate networks of human connections. Each pin represented not just a location, but a complex web of cultural understanding, of potential diplomatic interventions, of human stories waiting to be understood. The younger generation of intelligence operatives saw her as more than just a mentor. She was a philosophical guide, someone who had redefined what it meant to protect a nation. Her approach challenged everything traditional intelligence operations had believed about global security. It wasn't about gathering information, but about creating understanding. Her legacy extended far beyond her individual missions. Universities had begun to develop entire academic programs based on her approach to global intelligence. Her doctoral dissertation, largely classified, had become required reading in the most exclusive intelligence and diplomatic training programs. It was more than an academic paper. It was a blueprint for a new approach to global security. The most prestigious intelligence agencies around the world had attempted to fully recruit her, to make her a permanent fixture within their organizational structures. But Sarah understood that her power came from her independence, from her ability to move between systems, to see connections that institutional frameworks often missed. Her network of contacts was her most valuable asset, a web of diplomats, local informants, academic researchers, economic analysts that spanned continents. Each relationship was carefully cultivated, each contact a potential thread in preventing larger conflicts. She understood that true intelligence was about creating human connections, about finding common ground in seemingly irreconcilable differences. The missions that defined her career would never make headlines. Nor were the conflicts prevented. In the tribal regions of Afghanistan, where she had used linguistic and cultural understanding to redirect potential confrontations. The economic crisis averted in a small Southeast Asian nation through a complex series of diplomatic and economic interventions. The potential nuclear confrontation neutralized through a delicate web of international negotiations. Her background, the daughter of immigrant parents from the Texas-Mexico border, had been her greatest asset. She understood borders not just as geographical lines, but as complex human ecosystems. Her multilingual capabilities, her deep cultural understanding, these were her most powerful tools. More effective than any weapon, more precise than any technological intervention. The younger operatives who studied her methods spoke of her with a reverence that bordered on mythology. Not as a traditional hero, but as a philosophical guide who had reimagined what it meant to protect a nation. Her approach wasn't about confrontation, but about understanding the complex human motivations that drove potential conflicts. Military historians would later describe her as a transitional figure, someone who bridged traditional intelligence gathering with a new, more nuanced approach to global security. She represented a generation of operatives who understood that the most powerful interventions were often the ones that never made headlines, the conflicts prevented before they could even begin to take shape. Her personal life had been a secondary consideration to her mission. Romantic relationships, family traditions, personal comforts, these were sacrificed in service of a larger understanding. She was married to her mission, to the complex art of preventing global conflicts through intelligent intervention. As technology continued to evolve, Sarah represented a critical reminder that human intelligence would always be more powerful than any algorithmic prediction or technological intervention. Her ability to read human motivation, to understand the complex cultural dynamics that drove global tensions, was a skill that no artificial intelligence could replicate. The younger generation of intelligence operatives saw her as more than just a successful operative. She was a philosophical guide, someone who had fundamentally reimagined what it meant to protect a nation. Her approach challenged everything traditional intelligence operations had believed about global security. Her legacy was not about the conflicts she had prevented, but about the approach she had championed. An approach that saw global security as a complex human ecosystem that prioritized understanding over confrontation, that recognized the profound interconnectedness of human experience. The black SUV continued its journey through the afternoon traffic, carrying not just an operative, but a living testament to a new approach to global security. Sarah Martinez represented something far more significant than a single individual. She was a living embodiment of intelligent intervention, of the idea that true protection came from understanding, from seeing the complex connections that most would miss. As the vehicle merged into the flow of urban movement, she was already processing the next potential global challenge. Her mind continued to weave complex strategic narratives, to see the intricate connections that most would overlook. Another potential conflict to be understood, to be prevented, to be transformed. Just another passenger being transported through another city. Or so it would seem. The legend of the Shadow Weaver would continue to inspire generations of intelligence operatives to become a reminder that the most powerful interventions are often the ones we never see, the conflicts prevented before they can begin.